Hey, don't hit them.
What you saw is Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it's looking like absolute chaos over there. So what you was looking at is clashes between protesters and federal agents. It's been reported that rioters have been breaking into ICE vehicles and FBI vehicles, stealing weaponry and sensitive documents. Some of these documents had stuff like phone numbers, names, and addresses of federal agents. Most of this stems from a shooting between an ICE agent and a Venezuelan national. The Department of Homeland Security reports that the agent was conducting a traffic stop when the suspect fled and later ambushed officers with the help of two others using a snow shovel and a broom handle. The officer fired defensive shots hitting the suspect in the leg.
Just says at 6:50 p.m. Central Time tonight, quote, federal law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted traffic stop in Minneapolis of an illegal alien from Venezuela who was released into the country by Joe Biden in 2022. In an attempt to evade arrest, the subject fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. The subject then fled on foot. The law enforcement officer caught up to the subject on foot and attempted to apprehend him when the subject began to resist and violently assault the officer. While the subject and law enforcement were in a struggle on the ground, two subjects came out of a nearby apartment and also attacked the law enforcement officer with a snow shovel and broom handle. As the officer was being ambushed and attacked by the two individuals, the original subject got loose and began striking the officer with a shovel or broomstick. Fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by three individuals, the officer fired defensive shots to defend his life. The initial subject was hit in the leg. All three subjects ran back into the apartment and barricaded themselves inside. The attacked officer and subject are both in the hospital. Both attackers are in custody. This is another attack. This attack on another brave member of law enforcement took place while Minnesota's top leaders, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, are actively encouraging an organized resistance to ICE and federal law enforcement officers. Their hateful rhetoric and resistance against men and women who are simply trying to do their jobs must end.
So this chaos has led to a direct conflict between President Trump and Minnesota's leadership, Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey. Trump has issued a bombshell announcement threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act to stamp out what he labeled as professional agitators and insurrectionists. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is defending this move, stating the act is necessary to stop local officials from encouraging violence against law enforcement.
Protesters and federal law enforcement. Overnight, chaos erupted near the site of a second shooting involving a federal agent. The Department of Homeland Security says the agent shot a Venezuelan national in the leg after that person began to resist arrest and, quote, violently assault one of those officers. Earlier, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked how President Trump will decide whether he will invoke the Insurrection Act.
That's only a question, frankly, Reagan, the president can answer. But the Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations.
There was Caroline Leavitt from the Republican White House. Let's see what the Democrats over in Minneapolis have to say about this.
Minneapolis police have secured the crime scene around the location, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, as well as the FBI, are on the scene processing the evidence. There's a crowd gathered in the area, and we have called for mutual aid from the Minnesota State Patrol and Hennepin County Sheriff. The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed. Police are attempting to disperse this unlawful assembly at this time. I urge anyone that is at the scene to leave immediately.
Let's hear what Governor Tim Walz has to say about this.
The federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
They did, in fact, have some sort of weapons to use to attack the ICE officer. Would that change your opinion of whatever unfolded next?
Actually, no, right? Because from our vantage point, we wanted to make sure, and always wanted to make sure, that Minnesotans are being dealt with properly. And when we think in terms of any pursuit or any apprehension of anyone, there's a way for you to do your work where it's respectful and it's fair. We unfortunately have seen ICE not be respectful, not be fair, but to be illegal and to attack and to be very aggressive with Minnesotans. And to see that the federal government has made a decision to attack and send more and more agents here and allow them to be, allow them to misbehave, we think that's a tragedy and a travesty.
Down. The White House has now responded. Tim Walz, Jacob Frey, and Democrat leaders in Minnesota have done nothing but turn up the temperature, smear heroic ICE officers, and incite violence against them, all in the defense of criminal illegal aliens. In Minnesota, ICE has arrested rapists, drug traffickers, domestic abusers, and more, despite the Democratic opposition. The Trump administration will protect the American people and enforce the law without apology.